Airport Advisory Board into session. Tammy, would you call the roll?
Chair Dempsey,
Here?
Vice Chair Starley,
Here.
Member Lester,
Here.
and Member Norval.
Here. All right. If everybody hasn't already, if you wouldn't mind putting your phones on silent so we don't get interrupted with phones ringing while we're doing this. All right. We do have some presentations today. We're gonna. Do you want to set the table for this a little bit, Arvin, or would you like for me to? How do you want to do that? Go ahead.
Sure. We asked the New Smyrna Beach Garden Club to come and give a presentation at this time about a little bit about their history and about what their organization is doing here for the community. As you may or may not know, the airport currently leases land to the New Smyrna Beach Garden Club, and we are under review of their leases, and we are required to update their lease per the FAA after a recent audit. So wanted to just invite the Garden Club up at this time to speak a little bit about their organization and present that information to all of you.
Good afternoon. My name is Marty Sibley. I'm the current president of the New Smyrna Beach Garden Club. I think you all have a copy of this presentation. A brief history of the Garden Club. We were founded in 1929. We joined the Florida Federation of Garden Clubs in 1936. At that time, members met in individuals' homes. Then they met at the Conner Library and the Smyrna Yacht Club, and finally moved into our current building in the fall of 1988. That building was donated by John DeBerry in honor of his wife, Eva. Mr. DeBerry had established the New Smyrna Beach Bank, or the Bank of New Smyrna Beach, which was on Canal Street at that time. As you know, we currently lease the land from the city. The land and the building are maintained by the Garden Club. We have monthly member meetings with a program between October and May. We currently have 180 members. Our membership is open to all. We do have a short application form, and you just need to pay your dues. We also do special interest groups and classes, things like floral arranging and container gardening, vegetable gardening, growing roses in Florida, those kind of very garden club kind of stuff. And we also take field trips. Examples are the Orlando Wetlands, Lou Gardens, Stetson House, and we've done the downtown DeLand Historical Walking Tour, those kind of things. We have several annual events. First of all, we have a Festival of Trees. This is an open to the public event where we decorate trees, artificial trees. We decorate trees all in different styles, and then people can purchase them. Trees, wreaths, sometimes garland, lots of things that people can purchase. We have live floral arrangements at that time. We have a bake sale, and we have a Christmas marketplace. This is a fundraiser to help support the Garden Club. Then in the springtime, we have a rummage sale where we get donations, organize them, sell them. That, again, is open to the public. And anything that we don't sell, we donate on. We donate to God's Bathhouse, the Women's Shelter, local pet shelters, and Friends of the NSB Library. So we don't throw anything that is usable away. Then this spring, just last Thursday, for the first time in 20 years, we had a garden tour. This garden tour showcased private homes in New Smyrna Beach, and they were there to try and inspire people to garden, to do more than have a lawn. There was also a garden marketplace and gardening-related classes at Jane's Art Center as part of that garden tour. We provide 2 scholarships every year to a New Smyrna Beach High School graduate. We are looking for people going into science field, horticulture, marine biology, that kind of stuff. We also support the NSB chapter of Future Farmers of America. We give them 1 scholarship to a graduating FFA student, and at times we have given them financial aid. For example, last year they were building new pens. They needed to build new pens. We donated to them the money so that they could buy the wood to build those pens, and then the students all built them. We also sponsor elementary school students to go to Wekiva Youth Camp. We do 2 to 4 students a year, really depending on how many students want to go. And we've had repeat students and students who have gone on to be counselors at Wekiva Camp. So it's a very successful program. We also sponsor high school students to go to the FFGC, that's the Florida Federation of Garden Clubs, working with the University of Florida. They have a program, Save the Earth's Environment Through Knowledge, called SEEK for short. It's a residential program at the UF campus, and we, again, sponsor 2 to 3 high school students to that each year. We have additional things that we do in the community. We provide a fresh faux, botanical, that means fake, flower arrangement to the oncology ward. They can't have fresh flowers in the oncology ward. So we make a new arrangement every month for that Advent Health Hospital oncology ward. We donate a gardening basket, if you like, to every new homeowner from Habitat for Humanities. We give them a hose and a sprinkler and garden gloves and small garden tools. And then we collect food every month for the Gifts of Love food pantry. And we have quite a few community outreach things that we try to do. So we support New Smyrna Beach Springs Fest and Edgewater's Edge Fest community events each year. We assisted New Smyrna Beach to establish its community garden. That was back in maybe 2017, 2018. I wasn't a member at the time, so before my time. But we continue to plant and maintain the 2 butterfly gardens that they have at the community garden. And we support them in being New Smyrna Beach as a monarch city by doing that. We assisted this past year with the city of Edgewater to apply for and get their monarch city designation. And we consulted in the design of the butterfly garden at Hawks Park. That ribbon cutting, an announcement that they got their designation as a monarch city happens this Saturday, the 27th. We certify monarch butterfly sanctuary gardens in Port Orange, Edgewater, New Smyrna Beach, and Oak Hill. And we designate a garden of the month here in New Smyrna Beach, and you get a sign to put in your yard to say you had an outstanding garden. We have a milkweed sale every spring, and we do a lot of butterfly gardening education. So, for instance, in the last couple months, we did a presentation to the Boys and Girls Club at Babe James Community Center, and we also presented to the Venetian Bay Garden Club, which is a fairly new garden club, to help them figure out how to do a butterfly garden. So that's all the things that we do, and I think that's a good representation of how involved we are with the city and how we try to give back to the city. Any questions for me?
I would like to thank you for what you do for Habitat, because I'm on the board of Habitat, and we really appreciate everything that you do for our new homeowners, and I want to thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Just a clarification regarding your monthly meetings, and then it's got the statement that says with a program held from October to May, so you take the summer off?
Yes, we do.
There's-
We take the summer off. We have a lot of snowbirds, and they leave, in April and May and come back sometime in October, so we take the summer off. We don't have meetings in the summer. We do a lot of planning and that kind of work in the summer, working on our budget and things like
Okay.
that, but no meetings during the summer.
All right. What we're going to have to do at some point is make a recommendation to airport staff on how we respond to the FAA's raising this on their audit, okay, of the airport property and the fact that we have nonprofits that are using it for basically nothing. So the thinking is that we bring all these folks in here and let them give us a better understanding of exactly what they do so that when we make a recommendation, we'll have the information you provided will help us do that, okay?
Okay,
All right, thank you very much.
thank you.
All right, VFW Post 4250, are they here? Okay. All right. Well, we're also going to hear at some point from VFW Post 4250 and from the Lions Club. Okay, we did get a call from the Lions Club telling us they couldn't make it today, but we'll hear from the Post later. Okay. That brings us up to our public input. Do we have anyone that is going to make a presentation today? Okay. Just let me clarify that public input is a monologue, not a dialogue, in the words of our esteemed mayor, Fred Cleveland. It's an opportunity for you to speak and have your thoughts and points put on record, but we're not going to engage in back and forth. That's not the purpose of it, okay? So if you would come up and introduce yourself with your name and who you're here representing, or if you're a private citizen, where you live, and we'll give you 3 minutes to talk about that.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Ben Bartlett. I am the Volusia County Public Works Director, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about our mosquito control facility that we have at your airport. Mainly here as a courtesy to give you all a heads up. Arvin, I believe, has passed out some conceptual site plans. We've completed a needs analysis. We are in need of a new facilities out there, buildings essentially, for our mosquito control operations that house the aviation component as well as our adulticiding and all the things that we do. All of our mosquito control operations operate out of that facility. And if you notice on that conceptual site plan, it includes utilizing an adjacent parcel to the one we currently use, an additional 4.5 acre parcel to the west. So we're going to be coming before you all and working with the city staff and airport staff on working on trying to lease that property in addition to the ones that we already have. We're not proposing a large expansion of our operations, but in order to fit the new facility in the footprint we have and maintain current operations, the most efficient way to do that is to increase the land available to us. Mm-hmm. And so moving forward, we anticipate County Council awarding a contract to our design firm to start working on that process, the permitting, the design of the site, and the design of the buildings. We anticipate constructing a new aviation hangar, a new operational building, which will house our lab and all that entails, as well as our storage for our equipment. And mainly I'm here today just to put that on you all's radar and let you know we're here to work with the city and with the airport and to try to come up with the best solution that works for everyone. And appreciate your staff's assistance. We've already met with them, and we look forward to working with y'all going forward. Mosquito control really is a public health operation. We work to, reduce and eliminate mosquito-borne illnesses. We operate after hurricanes. We work with the state. The facilities we have out there now are not conducive to withstanding a hurricane windstorm. We actually have to remove all of our equipment, including our helicopters during that storm, and hopefully a new facility will allow us to remain and be operational immediately after those types of events. So I thank you for the time and happy to work with Arvin and everybody else as we move forward in the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for the gentleman? Okay.
Happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
Monologue.
Yeah. Thank you. Keeping me on track there. I appreciate that. Public input. Do we have any other public input?
We do. Joe Zitzka, Airgate Aviation.
I'm sorry.
Joe Zitzka, Airgate Aviation.
Okay, I got you.
You guys are going to talk about the fuel resolution revision coming up in a little bit. I would urge you guys to table it at least to the next meeting. There are a couple things in it that I think require some further discussion to build out. I understand conceptually what we're doing, but some of the items are, we're going to limit and require bulk loading, but we haven't defined what bulk loading is. There are some potential issues that could come up if you've taken a load of fuel, we get a request for fuel, and whatever we have to take is less than whatever number we come up with for bulk fueling. That's not in the resolution yet. There's also a limitation on overwing top loading. There have been times when the bottom loading system for the fuel farm hasn't worked, so top loading would have been an option. It's an option under the National Fire Protection Act. It's an option under the related FAA rules. So I'd like to revisit that. And I know you've got to have the right safety equipment, you have to have everything you need, but I'd like to understand why we would separate top loading versus bottom loading when they're both permissible. And then the different treatment for credit card usage, there's a practical issue with that. Right now, the guys most of the time, if we need to take fuel during the week, we can call them, take fuel, issue a check. But if they're not around on the weekend or it's a holiday and we have to take fuel, the credit card is the only way we can do it. And there's a different treatment between us and Epic right now. So to avoid grant assurance issues, we need to revisit how that process would work. So I would urge you guys to defer it and ideally request staff provide an actual written resolution for us to look at rather than just the outline of what they're going to do.
Okay, thank you for your comments. We appreciate that. Any other public participation or public input in today's meeting? All right. Consent agenda. We have to approve the minutes from the January 25th regular meeting and from the March 7th special meeting. Anybody had a chance to look those over? Mm-hmm. I looked them over. I found one clerical thing that Tammy is going to correct, but I think other than that, I'm good. Do we have a motion to approve the?
So move. I second.
Okay. Do we need to do that again for the March?
I was going to ask, do you want to combine them or you want to do them individually? Was that motion to approve both meetings or just one?
Yes, both.
Okay.
Both minutes. Okay, both sets of minutes. Okay.
And who was the second?
I was the second.
Okay.
Okay. Chair Dempsey?
Yes.
Vice Chair Starley?
Yes.
Member Lester?
Yes.
And Member Norval?
Yes.
All right. Arvin, you're going to give us an update on the airport noise abatement.
Yes, thank you, Jim. All right, so a little bit of background here. The airport staff, Epic Flight Academy, and the assistant city manager meet monthly to discuss noise abatement efforts and to review the previous month's compliance efforts. We've been doing that for about 15 months. So what you're looking at here is the most recent report, which summarizes the efforts of Epic in the airport to reduce some of the activities that are controllable. Some are not, as we know. And some of these that we're going to talk about are there's nothing that can be done. I mean, this is voluntary measures only, so these efforts that you see and the result, as you can see, the year-over-year numbers, that's a result of efforts by Epic and the airport to work together to create more awareness on behalf of, the users. Other flight school activity, mainly today, I'm going to talk about this first report is all flyovers at inlet shores. Inlet shores tends to be one of the more sensitive communities. So let me back up a little bit and get a little feedback. You guys hearing feedback? So we started tracking how many times a aircraft would fly over inlet shores, since that's one of the ones we get a lot of complaints about. And we do that with our software, VerTower. We actually created a geofence around that area just to see how many times an aircraft actually is flying over. Last year, we were around 1%. This is a percentage of total operations. So how many times is somebody flying over as opposed to how many operations there are total at the airport? As you can see, it's very low. But you can see this year, 2024, it's even lower than it was when we started this. So you can kind of review those trends and see that there is some change over time. Just a reminder that all of our noise abatement procedures are 100% voluntary. Many times pilots are not able to follow them due to the various factors such as the runway being used, wind direction, other weather factors, other traffic, direction from ATC. There's a million reasons why they can't. Training requirements such as SOTA approaches, that's just a few. Epic students and instructors are required to follow noise abatement procedures unless safety of flight or other issues such as those mentioned above prevent them from doing so. So what I mean by required is how can we require them when it's voluntary? So what they've done is they've taken those voluntary measures and made it part of their curriculum. And unless there's a reason, they have a noise abatement officer that reviews these every other day. He sits down and looks at the previous 2 days. And if he sees and he listens to the air traffic control recordings, we talk about going above and beyond. I mean, they listen to the air traffic control recordings and say, was this touch and go? Was this an approach? Was this a short approach? Was this flyover something that was necessary? And he goes over each one and sits down with the flight instructor or the student and counsels them if there was a reason or if there was not a reason for them to violate the noise or to be outside of the noise abatement program. So although noise abatement procedures are also used by Embry-Riddle, Phoenix East, Air America, a lot of these organizations, they don't have a noise abatement officer. So when if we find that there's somebody who's operating outside of the norm, it's very much after the fact. We have to sit down and talk to them. And so there are days when you might have an aircraft that's doing something over and over and over again. There's no real way, there's no legal way to talk. I can't pick up the radio and say, hey, we have air traffic control, here at this airport. So, and the communication that they're having with the pilot needs to be strictly about, safety of flight and things like that. So air traffic control is not going to give them direction on noise abatement. They may, at the most, remind them noise abatement procedures are in effect, and that's about it. So I'm going to go through a couple other slides here just to kind of show you and give you an idea of what we've been looking at. This is just for Epic, so Epic versus total operations. So this just gives you a snapshot of how busy the airport is, how much of that traffic is Epic. So for example, March, year over year, they've been, last year they were in the 70% range, and then they climbed into the 80s. And they've stayed higher than that this year so far. I know our tower manager told me, I think it was Tuesday, that we had over 900 operations in one day. Not all Epic, but certainly the airspace is very busy. I'm monitoring the frequency today. I'm hearing many people calling in saying, hey, I want traffic pattern. And the tower's saying, sorry, we're full. So no surprise that flight training is the predominant activity that's happening here. This is another snapshot that just kind of gives you a show of how many of those flyovers we talked about earlier are Epic. So Epic being 80% of the traffic, only 19, 20, 30% of the flyovers. So That, I think, shows to their efforts to be in compliance there when it comes to,
That's still Inlet Shores, is that what that is?
that is just Inlet Shores.
Okay.
And we're getting into touch and goes, and when I mean touch and goes, I'm talking about touch and goes after hours or prior to, outside of what the noise abatement asks or requests the pilots do. And here's the activities. Not a lot. As you can see, pretty high compliance rate for them, and compared to last year, doing better, at least overall. You will occasionally see a real big spike, and sometimes that's just one person who forgot or who's new, who missed the memo, something happened. Some of these activities that we see too are, again, like required. They were on a check ride. There was an activity they had to complete. They had no choice. It has to be done. So we're not going to see zero. What we can see is just share our efforts on communication. These reports so far focus mainly on Epic because they are 80% of our operations. So that was kind of the low-hanging fruit. Like I said, we do communicate with Embry-Riddle and Phoenix East, Air America. For the sake of time, it is very time-consuming to go back and look at every single other person. Like Epic has a full-time person doing this. We don't have a full-time person doing this. So it falls on our staff to create these reports. So as of right now, my main focus has been Epic. When we do see violations by other schools or other entities, we do communicate to them. They correct the issue, but it's not as proactive because they don't have this officer looking at it, almost in real time like Epic does. That's my noise report for this point. Any questions?
Any questions on? We did, if you recall, we did ask the airport staff to make this a dedicated agenda item, and that's why we're doing it this way, okay? So that we can have that update as part of and I think that was a recommendation as the noise report as well for us to do that. Okay. All right. 5B, C, and D. I'm going to let you move into those if you would, Arvin.
Yes, so just to kind of recap our last meeting, we discussed the noise study that was done, completed by our consultant, ESA, gave the presentation to the City Commission. I believe it was February 27th. He gave that commission report. His recommendations we shared with you. From that, you all gave us some direction to sit down, have a roundtable discussion with different users, including air traffic control. So we formed a informal little committee that met at the airport on March 12th. We had a roundtable discussion with airport users, air traffic control manager, local flight school, including Embry-Riddle and Epic, both attended, and Chair Dempsey. The first item we're talking about today is the designation of a calm wind runway. The consultant recommended that we establish a calm wind runway like you see at other airports. After discussion, there was concerns from air traffic control and I think also the users that the designation of a calm runway during the day would greatly impede the ability of ATC to effectively, safely, and efficiently direct the traffic. One of the main concerns was the ability to basically would hamstring them and force them to use a particular runway when during calm wind, when based on whatever's happening, whatever activity may be happening that particular day, they may need to get aircraft out, they may have aircraft coming in. And so instead, the committee consensus was, or the roundtable group, their consensus was instead that the airport follow a similar process as other airports, issue a calm wind runway for when the air traffic control tower is not in use, which for us would be 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. So here's some examples from other airports. DeLand, calm wind runway 05. Now DeLand does not have a tower. So there is, let's see, Ferdinando Beach, calm wind runways. During calm wind runway use 20 is runway 22. We looked at a lot of other airports, and based on feedback we got from the users, and ATC, Staff at this point recommend publishing the Conway runway as 07, runway 7, to read or similar, quote, "For noise abatement when ATC is closed, runway 07 is Conway runway in VFR conditions." Now, that's a little wordy, but that's the basic premise. And that would be published in the chart supplement, which we know not everybody reads. However, that is the best way that's recommended to us to publish and get that information out there so that we can have that. And again, that's recommended, so that would be voluntary, is my understanding. But I'll open that up for discussion at this time.
Any comments? We're gonna need to make a motion on this, right?
After, yes, but if
After.
there's any discussion or anything.
Yeah, I understand that, but
Yes.
this came out of the noise report. This was one of their recommendations, was to establish a Conway runway. And the meeting that we had, that Arvin is describing, was really good. We had a crowd in that conference room at the airport admin building, and we had some really good dialogue between the flight schools, air traffic control, airport, and users. Really good dialogue in that meeting. And it was clear that we did not want to do anything that had any impact whatsoever on the air traffic control tower during normal operations. That's why, when the tower was closed, and I think you had brought that up in one of that was your big concern, okay? So,
Just personal opinion, you're asking for comments. I think there is some benefit when the tower is closed to designate a particular Conway runway, just because it kind of regulates where you can expect people to be, and it is beneficial in a non-controlled airport, in my opinion, for the pilots. And I think it's very wise not to put any constraint on the designated runways when the tower's operating, just for the reasons that you've expressed. And the fact that you've got professional controllers up there who have a wealth of experience in being able to flow traffic based on the current conditions. So for me, I think the recommendation makes a lot of sense.
anyone else have any comments?
Wanted to add something really quickly that you might, just to remind everybody that currently runway 29 is the only runway that has instrument night approaches. So that being said, we wanted to make sure that we emphasize VFR condition.
VFR, yeah,
Right.
clearly.
I don't have a problem with the recommendation that was given by the noise study. That make sense? Right, they recommended 7.
His recommendation was vague in that it just said, publish Conway runway, have a published Conway runway. Based on our dialogue, I think we found the need to be clear.
Yes.
And so that's what we're trying to do here. So your motion, or your recommendation is going to go to the committee, or to the city commission on May 14th. And from that, they will, so your recommendation carries a lot of weight, so.
Okay. So ESA did the report, had the meeting with the commission. We had the meeting on March 7th. We took away and formed this little working group at the airport and went through those recommendations. And relative to the designation of a Conway runway, this is what we came up with, okay? VFR only, runway 7, okay? So if everybody's in agreement with that, then
Right.
we need a motion and a second to go to the,
I'll make a motion that it becomes runway 7.
I second it.
And again, do I understand that that's VFR only tower closed, right? Correct? Is that the motion?
Yes.
yes,
Okay. Yeah.
yes, as it reads here.
Okay.
This says Staff recommends publishing the Comwin runway as 07, okay, which is what you were saying, to read or similar for noise abatement when ATC is closed, okay? And VFR conditions.
VFR only, yeah.
VFR conditions, okay? So, does somebody want to make that motion so that we can get it made and seconded?
I just did.
You did?
He
Okay,
did, and I
okay.
seconded.
Okay, good. All right, we were done.
Gary, can I just get you to amend it with the VFR during non-hours?
Read it verbatim. Comwin runway as 07 to read or similar for noise abatement when ATC is closed. Runway 07 is Comwin runway in VFR conditions. I make a motion to accept that.
I second it.
Okay, so we're good.
Chair Dempsey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Starley,
Yes.
Member Lester,
Yes.
Member Norval.
Yes.
Okay. All right, the next recommendation was raising the pattern altitude. All right, you want to?
So similarly, we met with the same roundtable March 12th, same group. So the recommendation from the consultant was that we raise the traffic pattern altitude from its 800 to 1,000. The reason why it is not 1,000 is because we lie under Class Charlie, at least that's our understanding. And that Charlie shelf is 1,200. Right? Yeah, so when I talked to Flight Standards, they said we would absolutely entertain you making that request and we would have to do a study, et cetera, et cetera. But simultaneously, we had this consensus among the group. These concerns that were raised about raising the traffic pattern altitude is that it would have minimal possible impacts on noise. In fact, the concerns were that it would stretch the noise out to areas that don't have noise now. For example, Ponce Inlet, some areas further to the west, and that the traffic pattern would now be wider, longer, I should say, and that by raising, and also a major safety concern that was raised by air traffic control, I think one of the most valid is that aircraft would now be in conflict with aircraft flying up and down the coast. So by flying a longer pattern, because they have to climb up, higher, and they have to reach a certain altitude before they turn, you could increase the likelihood for traffic conflicts and a significant threat to the safety of flight. And so the group was very unanimous on the recommendation not to pursue raising the pattern altitude for safety concerns and the potential for increased noise impacts to the community. I'll open it up for discussion.
This was a really interesting discussion that we had on this one because we all started out thinking, okay, we can probably, this might make sense, okay, because it's particularly other airports locally have 1,000-foot altitude, pattern altitude. So the discussion started off with thinking that that was the direction that we were going to go. But the further we got into it, I think the thing that killed it the most firmly in all of our minds was when we realized that this could set us up for a situation with traffic up and down the coast, banner airplanes and things like that with a potential conflict that we didn't want to see happen. So we all immediately just kind of pulled the switch on this one and said, no, we're not going to do that. So it was a really good discussion because it started out going one direction and we had some really smart people in the room, and the more we got into it, the more clear it became was this is not a thing that we want to do. So based on that, the ESA recommendation in this case, we're going to, the group that met in that room's recommendation was that we not change from 800 to 1,000 feet.
I agree with that.
I do also. I think both of those, the concerns that you've expressed are absolutely valid.
Okay, all right. So we need a motion to go to the commission to tell them that we studied this thing from top to bottom and we don't agree with it. We recommend this stays as is. So whoever wants to make the motion can do that.
I'd move that the pattern altitude be left as is.
I second that.
Okay.
Chair Dempsey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Starley,
Yes.
Member Lester,
Yes.
Member Norval.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Another recommendation from the ESA study was that we simplify the voluntary noise abatement procedure, okay? And so that same group met and discussed this. Arvin, if you want to walk us through that.
Yeah, just to give you background on that, so the current noise abatement, which I put all my copies out front so that anybody could have a copy if they were here, but basically it states there's a couple items, 2 bullet points in the noise abatement program that are a little confusing to both pilots and the members of the community. Basically, they have 2 different hours of operations for 2 different types of repetitive activities. And while the reason for that is a valid one, it ends up confusing, like I said, users and the community. So currently it states that there's not to be any repetitive operations between the hours of 5 p.m. and 8 a.m. I'm sorry, I may have that backwards. This is confusing me even now. Basically, in summary, the consensus among the group was the language regarding touch and goes between the hours
Do you
of...
need my copy of this?
Actually, that would help, sorry, yeah, I should know it by now, but...
And I actually have it marked up with the change that we made in the group.
So just to read, thank you, Jim. I'm sorry, it says no repetitive flight operations between the hours of 2200 local, which is 10 p.m., and 7 a.m. So no repetitive flight operations includes activities such as touch and go, stop and go, full stop taxi back, low approaches, etc. So repetitive meaning, and then it goes on to say no touch and goes, which is just one form of repetitive activities between the hours of 5 and 8. So the recommendation was that we simplify the noise abatement procedures, and by removing the language, we I think we discussed this maybe longer than some of the other ones, but the consensus was it would be in everybody's interest to just simplify it by just removing the statement that says no touch and goes between the hours of 5 and 8. You would still have no repetitive flight operations between the hours of 10 and 7. Most people can't tell the difference between a touch and go, so having that in there is kind of unnecessary and has minimal positive impacts to the community and only serves to confuse everybody. So in summary, we recommend the removal of, quote, no touch and go operations between the hours of 1700 local and 0800 local, end quote, from the voluntary noise abatement procedure or program.
So if we're taking that out, are we still doing the 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.?
Yes, the only thing that changes, and Jim can show you, it's just the one statement that says no touch and go operations between the hours of 5 and 8.
But then we said from 10 to 7, that was the reason why I asked that question.
We said that this is okay, this is okay, we're just going to eliminate that line.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
What ends up happening is we get calls, people think that nobody can fly or nobody's, can take off and land before 8, which isn't true. So it's just serving to confuse everybody.
We don't want to do that.
And it became obvious in that meeting that the way it was written was confusing. And so this was, Epic agreed to it completely. The gentleman from Embry-Riddle, he made the point that they have 100 airplanes and 1,500 students, and he kept repeating that. But notwithstanding that, he did buy in at the very end of our discussion on this. So we had good buy-in from the two big users, okay? And our tenant participants were, they were good with it as well. So basically, it's just simplifying it. We have the most complex voluntary noise abatement procedures of any airport in the area. We looked at all of the various noise abatement procedures from the surrounding airports and ours. So we tried to focus on a way just to make it simplify it a little bit and make it, hopefully that would help improve the usage of it. But we kept the no more than 8 touch and goes without a taxi back or departure, and we're just taking that one line out, and that was agreed to. Gary, you look like you have something to say.
Oh, I've got a lot to say since the beginning. We have voluntary noise abatement. They have the suggested patterns. And now we're getting into what sounds like mandatory noise abatement. This is when you can fly and when you can do what. We've done 2 studies that have cost the airport well over $200,000 and came back that we don't have noise issues. And unfortunately, the last study we did was paid by the airport, which should have been paid by the city. It's getting to the point where it's mandatory and it's confusing. And at some point, it's got to end, because all you're doing is grabbing people's, I don't mean that derogatory, but you're just grabbing people's ideas and how can we appease this person? Well, let's add another voluntary thing. And it just keeps piling up and piling up. And it goes back to when Arvin was speaking about how much time the airport management office puts into noise complaints, how much they're tracking traffic. What else are they doing? I know you do other things, but what else are you doing in the office? And then it goes to the flight schools. They're doing it voluntarily to follow and track their people. Well, that's taking time away from them doing their regular jobs. It just keeps snowballing, and nobody wants to say, this is what it is. This is how it's going to be. End of story. I'm sorry, but you're never going to make everybody happy. So you got to stop at some point. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you.
As for the altitude, well, we started off with altitude, right?
Pattern altitude.
Well-
We started off with calm wind runways and then pattern altitude.
Okay. But yeah, that's my only comment on this. It just keeps going on and on and on, and there's not ever going to be a stopping point until the airport puts a stopping point to it or the city does, of all these suggested voluntary things. You can't limit them to when they can fly, where they can fly. So get over it and live with it. That'll probably get me kicked off the board.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Okay, we still have the ESA report, and this is a recommendation to the city, and we met and discussed it and came up with this revision to the voluntary noise procedure. And their ESA's recommendation was to simplify it, okay, to make it easier to understand. So that's what we tried to do here with that group of people that we had. So and that team that met at the airport agreed with simplifying it by eliminating the third bullet of the voluntary noise abatement procedures, okay? No testing goes between the hours of 1700 local and 0800 local. And so that is what is being recommended here from that group, and we, as a board, need to either agree to send that to the commission or not.
I'd move that we accept that recommendation and remove the third bullet to simplify the process.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. So moved.
Chair Dempsey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Starley,
Yes.
Member Lester,
I'll say yes, but I'm on the fence.
Member Norval.
Yes.
All right. Now, when will these go to the city commission, these three recommendations?
May 14th.
May 14th, okay. If any, I'm asking that just in case somebody wants to sit in on that city commission
Oh,
meeting.
I'll be there.
All right. Fuel resolution review. Arvin, you're going to talk to us about price of gas.
Yes, so here's kind of a snapshot of airport fuel sales. Just to kind of set this up for anybody who is not aware, the airport currently, or the city of New Smyrna Beach currently has the only fuel farm that sells aviation fuel at the airport. There's two products that the airport is selling, Avgas 100 low lead and Jet A, which is premixed with additive, anti-icing additive. Total gallons there are across the top, for those are fiscal years. You will notice in fiscal year 21 that there was a loss. COVID greatly affected the fuel sales, and also there was some expense that the finance department that year had related to COVID that the finance department elected to put in the cost of sales. So that number isn't as real as we would like it to be. However, the gallons are real. Typically, over the last 3 years, we've averaged about $70,000 to $100,000 in what you want to call profit. I just wanted to take the opportunity to let everybody know, or remind everybody that the airport is currently self-sufficient, which means we're not taking any tax money. So therefore, it's important that we do make enough revenue to cover the costs of capital improvement projects such as taxiway rehabs, runway rehabs, all the other things that we have to do to maintain not only the fuel farm, which can be very costly on its own, as we found this past year. The cost of labor is going up, as everybody knows. I mean, we've had to keep pace to stay competitive, to, just keep pace with what is needed to pay our employees. Non-labor items have also gone up, the cost of materials, everything like that. And there has been no increase in fuel to our customers. There's been no increase in price over the past 10 years since the fuel resolution was signed back in 2013. I'm going to give a copy of here's a copy of the current resolution, which provides for the fuel rate schedule for our airport. And so, in summary, it says that the city shall purchase all aircraft fuel, which is to be sold or resold. The price to be charged for the city is cost plus 60 cents. And that fixed base operators shall be charged the city's cost plus 20 cents. It also gives payment terms. So what we are proposing, or what I am proposing is, in summary, is to have, and yes, the actual resolution itself has to be written by our Tracy London, who is our paralegal, sorry. So what we're proposing is that since there's been no increase in over 10 years, that really breaking this down into two categories. One is wholesale fuel, which we're selling to the FBOs who turn around and sell fuel to their customers. They do this by loading fuel into their trucks, into their aircraft refuelers, and turning around and selling it at their markup to their customers. In the case of Epic Aviation, that they're not only selling fuel, they're also using fuel internally for their aircraft, and the same with Airgate, who are using it internally, for their aircraft, as well as selling it retail to other entities who would need fuel. So recognizing that the FBOs we're selling this wholesale to them, we want to recognize the fact that they're buying a large quantity of fuel, and they're buying, anywhere from 100,000 gallons to 300,000 gallons a year. And as such, and because they're turning around and they have to make a profit, we're going to sell it to them at a cheap bulk rate. When I say bulk, I mean they're buying a quantity of fuel at a time, and they're putting it into their vehicles or into their truck to turn around and sell it. So there's no intent to put a number on that, because there could be times when somebody wants to go fill up their truck and they can only put 100 gallons in it, So you can't say, well, you have to buy 100 gallons and this is the price, or else, because that wouldn't be fair. I think that point was brought up, and I agree. So, as it pertains to FBOs, I'm proposing that we give them a 5-cent increase and a subsequent price increase of 1 cent per year, just to keep pace with CPI, which doesn't really even do that, but it's an attempt to cover some of that costs. Pricing for the FBOs would be for bulk loading or splash loading, as was brought up. Splash loading, of course, is allowed to. The purpose of this is to focus on the purchase of fuel for a refueler and not directly into plane. So if an FBO is buying fuel, but they're bringing a plane over, and they're bringing 20, 30 planes over, and they're dragging out that hose 30 times to fuel an airplane because their truck broke down. My point is that that's a cost, that's wear and tear on our system that we're not counting on when we say we're going to give them a wholesale price. That's the whole point of them. They're going to hook up to the truck once, and they're going to pump fuel one time, 500 gallons, 1,000 gallons, whatever it may be. But if they're pulling their aircraft over one at a time because their truck's broken down, there needs to be a cost they need to be paying what that rate is at the pump. Mm-hmm. Also, as it relates to the purchase of fuel with a credit card. So if an FBO uses a credit card, there's a credit card fee. Okay, we're already giving you fuel at 20 cents or 25 cents over cost. And if the cost or the price of that fuel is $5 a gallon, and that credit card's costing me 3% to run that credit card transaction, that's 15 cents. So now I'm only making 10 cents on that transaction. So if we want to make it fair, then if you have to use a credit card for whatever reason, then a credit card should be subject to a 15-cent charge per gallon to cover the cost of credit card fees. So what I'm suggesting is that we give a 5-cent increase for bulk loading, an increase of 5 cents for FBOs, cost plus 26, and a 1 cent increase every year thereafter, effective October 1st. Now, I had a comment to be made by one of the FBOs that said, hey, for budgeting purposes, would you consider October 1st and just making the 6 cents instead of 5 cents in June and 1 cent in October? Could we wait till October and just do it all at once? So I think that's a fair question and consideration, and also that would tie in fine with our fiscal year, because our fiscal year starts October. It also gives us time to iron out any bugs, to get the resolution drafted in its complete form and presented to you all at our next advisory board meeting. or if we decide we need a permanent. I have had this reviewed by legal, just in its generic form, and our finance department. So that kind of takes care of FBOs. I want to, for a second, go back to self-serve retail customers. So again, we're selling fuel two different ways. We're selling fuel wholesale, but we're also selling fuel at the pump to self-serve customers who are going to pull up to the fuel farm where the tanks are with their aircraft, and they're going to purchase fuel. Right now, the resolution says that we are going to charge them flat margin. The margin's never going to change. The price is going to change because the cost is going to change. But basically, every week, we get a price update. Sometimes the cost goes down, sometimes the cost goes up. But we have no ability to change the margin. And that makes us not only ineffective in the market, it ties our hands when it comes to potentially offering a savings to our customer, or price, hedging when we see, we see the price of oil go up or down, and we know we've got good information that tells us, hey, we've got a bunch of fuel, price is going to go up, I'm not going to buy. There's opportunities to not only pass savings on to customers, but also allows us to be more competitive. There's opportunities when we are 50, 60 cents cheaper than everybody else. And while I don't mind providing a good value to our customers, that is not great business, because it only puts your FBOs at a disadvantage for selling fuel so low, but it also leaves money on the table, so to speak, because we could still offer a discount to our customer and be, even say the cheapest around, but not be so cheap that we are missing out on an opportunity to make a little bit more money that we need. And keep in mind, I remind everybody that the money that we're getting, any profit that we get, goes back into the airport for things like the projects that we need. Just in the next 5 years, we need at least $2 million local money. That's not just including what's coming to us in the form of grants, but we need other money. So we get that money from the rent that we charge, from the fuel that we sell. And it's arguable whether I'm showing you that we're making $100,000, but that's not including any capital recovery. That's not including us factoring in things like, hey, that fuel farm costs, if I had to go out and replace that fuel farm tomorrow, I mean, it's incredibly expensive now. It's going to cost 5 times what it did when we put it in there. Millions of dollars. So, and the amount of time that we're spending and energy. So what I'm proposing is that the staff has the ability to review the local market, the current cost of fuel, and has the ability to set the margin that brings the value to the customer, and yet still maintains that healthy profit margin for the airport. And we have that ability, we have that knowledge, we already know the cost each week, we know what the other guy's selling fuel for, and we can say, hey, you know what, we're not selling as much fuel. This week we need to drop it down. Let's do, somewhat of a sale, if you will. We don't have that ability now. We don't have an ability to do, not free fuel, but hey, 50 cents off fuel Thursday or whatever, any type of promotion like that we could do that makes it more desirable to come to the airport and buy some fuel. So anyway, I'll be quiet now. I'm interested in hearing your feedback and thoughts.
Comments?
I've got one comment. So on your self-service, when you come and drive in, you're going to fill up your thing. Are you going to charge extra for credit card? Because most people that do self-service, they're on a trip or something, and they're always using their credit card because they're going to write that off on their taxes whenever there's a trip or whatever. So are you saying that the self-service, when they come in, instead of paying 20 cents, it's going to be 60 cents because you're charging for the credit card?
No, for self-serve, that's already built into the price.
Okay.
We have a resolution in the city that any credit card transactions within the city have a 3% charge.
Well, that's
So-
fair because
so
that's
you're-
everywhere.
So if our price is $5,
Yeah.
we are already having, there's already a 15 cent. The exception is the FBOs, but the price at the pump is currently,
It's in there.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'd hate for somebody to say something, what happened? You know, okay, thanks.
Joe?
I've got nothing.
Okay, nothing on that? My expectation on this is that no matter what we do here, it's going to go into the system in the city. It's going to get a lot of scrutiny. It's going to get lots of examination by the city lawyers and everybody else, okay, accountants and everyone else. I think what you're looking for us to do today is just give you guys the go-ahead, and we make a motion that you proceed with the city relative to the fuel cost pricing going forward for implementation in October. Is that what we're looking for?
Yes.
Okay, that's my expectation, is no matter what kind of discussion we have here, it could come out looking close to this, it could come out looking completely different once all the lawyers and accountants get done with it in the city system. So,
Yeah.
but he's just looking for an okay from us to, let's go take this and go forward and change what we have now and bring it up to current. This is what, an 11 or 12-year-old policy that we've got here, and certainly everything associated with fuel has gone completely wacky in the last several years. So this is a good opportunity for the airport administration to get with the city and come up with a fuel pricing that is appropriate for today for our airport.
I would make fuel pricing as profitable as possible, so we have more of that income coming in for improvements to the airport and stuff that needs to be done. We're already known as the cheapest airport in the area for fuel, and I guess some other airports would like us to see raise our prices. But yeah, make fuel as profitable as possible, just so you're not at the point of gouging people, and get that money back into the airport for repairs and maintenance,
Okay?
cost of
Good
operating.
comment. Okay, so we need a recommendation for the city, for Arvin to go forward with the revision to the fuel resolution as presented, and then we'll let them sort it out. You wanna make it?
All right, I'll make a motion that we recommend that you proceed with the fuel purchasing policy as you've described.
I second.
Chair Dempsey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Starley,
Yes.
Member Lester,
Yes.
Member Norval.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's going to bring us up to airport manager update.
So we have about 45 minutes left, and I don't think I need all that information, or that time, I should say. I do have a brief presentation that I want to give on just the updates to the airport. Before I get into that, I want to just recognize and thank Marty for coming from the Garden Club. Thank you. I think she already left, but I want to just give you just kind of the reason why we asked her to come. So Congress picks an airport every few years that the local airport district office has to audit, and they audited our airport a few years ago. When I came on board, they notified me that there was a few open items that they had, and one of them was a review of our nonprofit or not-for-profit leases. We have 3 of those currently. One is the Garden Club, who you met today or you heard from today. The second one is the VFW, and the third is the Lions Club. Each one of those were issued a lease sometime in the 60s, and they were roughly, each of them were offered a 100-year lease with no stipulations, basically no requirement. I think they were each maybe $1, $10 a year they had to pay. So that is in conflict with the FAA's guidance And I'm going to quote some from the compliance manual, and this is from, it says that a sponsor may, or I should say this, non-aeronautical use for an airport like ours, it is a public use airport. We take funding from the federal government, so there are strings attached to that money. And based on that and other reasons, the rates charged for non-aeronautical use must be based on fair market value. The exception, there are some exceptions. There is an exception for community purposes. So the sponsor being the city, can make airport property available for community purposes at less than fair market value on a limited basis. And there are several conditions that have to be made. They meet all the conditions, and I'm going to give you a few. The property is not intended for an aeronautical purpose. Right now, it's not. The property is not producing airport revenue. There are no near-term prospects for producing revenue. Now, what we do have to make sure is in our lease that there's a reversion clause that says that the property will revert back to the airport at the end of the term. One of the main conditions, reason why I wanted them to come here today is one of the conditions is it says, does the community purpose maintain or enhance positive community relations in support of the airport? So that's the one question we have, and it sounds like today, based on all the things that we see the Garden Club doing, that they contribute to the community in a very positive way. So the question is, how do we highlight that has a positive impact on the airport? As I was sitting here listening to her, thinking about our terminal building and ways that we might do that, maybe there's an opportunity for us to either do events together, or maybe there's an opportunity for us to highlight activities that they're doing at the Garden Club and how the airport is supporting that by this land use. So I think there's further discussions that need to happen there, but I wanted to just have them come and introduce that to you, because this is something that I'm required to give updates. This kind of fell on our lap. We didn't realize this was still outstanding until I was notified about this. So basically their lease, in some cases like the VFW, the FAA considers their lease null and void. It's already expired. So I've been working with our legal department to draw up a new lease. It'll basically be a commercial lease, but I am looking for feedback, and maybe we need further dialogue, but on the direction you all would recommend to our city commission when it comes time, because ultimately they're going to have to approve this lease. But prior to that, we have to make sure that the FAA is okay with what we're doing. And I think where you all come into play is having a discussion on how we might meet that one criteria that is the one that's kind of outstanding at the moment, and that is, how does the purpose, or how does the community purpose that Garden Club, VFW, Lions Club, how does that maintain or enhance positive community relations in support of the airport? So, not looking for an answer right now, but
Good.
We'll circle back, okay?
Can I say something?
Yes.
I do have an answer for you.
Okay.
Okay, so the Garden Club does do a lot of things for a lot of people, okay? And they do bring in money when they're making their things at Christmas and stuff like that. So what I see is Garden Club and I see airport. Okay, so I also see, what about the Garden Club coming up with some ideas about putting some beautiful flowers, around the airport, like our office, where the round circle is, something like that, or in certain areas of the airport, because they're a Garden Club and beautification is their idea, basically. So something like that the city might really like that factor, because it makes it beautiful and everybody goes, wow, boy, the airport really looks fantastic. We've got some new flowers and we've got some new bushes and stuff like that. So I'm just injecting that because that's what it is, and, they could do that.
Okay.
Very good idea.
So how are we going to do this? Are you going to come back, you going to, with some proposed wording?
We'll have it all laid out in our July meeting, and then we'll
Okay.
take it to the commission after that. We should have Lisa's draft and everything. Just want to finalize that one little piece and bring you into the loop without, I didn't feel like this was a decision that we wanted to make unilaterally. I felt like this was it's a community purpose, so I wanted to have a community discussion.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I didn't ask Ms. Sibley before her presentation was over. And I didn't want to make it sound like I'm putting her on the spot, but my question would have been, what does the Garden Club do for the airport? It's like Celeste said, putting bushes in and so forth. Well, if you're leasing property like I am, Joe is, Epic, that's their responsibility to make those buildings look nice. That's the city's responsibility because you're leasing from the city. Originally, when I put the propeller in the turnaround there, in the circle and the Jack Bolt Memorial, the Garden Club was supposed to take care of all the planting and upkeep of that memorial garden right there. And Jack Bolt's son was supposed to be helping out with that. I don't know if, it doesn't look like he's helping, but nothing's been done to it. I think it was just done once when we put the prop up. It looked pretty, and then it went back to looking nasty again.
We did talk with Jack Bolt's son. He came by. We were able to speak with him. He did donate some funds that we did apply for what was recently within the past year was completed. That was used with his funds. So he has helped out to some extent recently.
Okay. Just, I don't know. All of us on airport property pay a fair amount for the buildings that we lease. So that's what I'd like to know. What can the Garden Club do to the airport and still pay a fair lease if they're going to be there and they're non-aviation? Granted, they're kind of landlocked now because they're stuck in an area that's surrounded by a sports complex. And same with the VFW. What are you doing to the airport, or what are you doing for the airport?
I agree with that.
All do our part, and I know it's not going to be popular when you say something to the VFW and you say something to the Garden Club, but we're all paying our fair share. Some of us go above and beyond doing that. So there has to be more input from those two organizations of what they're doing for the airport.
Well, three. Lions Club.
Three are, yeah.
I think that's absolutely a legitimate request, is for us to go back. It's nice for her to come in and say, this is who we are and what we do, but you are getting a very generous property, okay, from the city through the airport, and it's not inappropriate to go back and ask them, what are you guys, how does that benefit us? How does that benefit the airport? What can you do to benefit the airport? Okay, so why don't you guys go back and approach all three of them with that? Okay.
And as I understand it, I think there's one more point to that, and that is that the FAA requires that we show exactly how they are contributing to the airport. So it seems to me that it's actually a function of their maintaining their lease that we find a way for them to demonstrate that.
I don't think anybody's got a bone to pick with the Garden Club or the Lions Club, or especially the VFW, but we need their help right now in responding to the FAA, because we've got an audit issue that we have to resolve. So you guys need to go back to them and have them help us with that. We're ready to move on to the...
Yes, I want to just touch base too on the presentation made, or the public comments made by Mosquito Control and Ben from Volusia County. Thank you for those comments. I want to just explain what's happening there and why it is not instantaneous, or why there's kind of where we're at in that process. So we approached the FAA with this request that, that we had mosquito control would like to lease more land from us. And they asked us to, because this is not consistent with our master plan, our airport layout plan shows that this area, part of this area at least, is aeronautical use. When I pressed them on the use we provided, based on information provided to me from mosquito control, they determined that they would consider the use non-aeronautical, even though there is a little bit of aeronautical use and that there's helicopters, that they would consider the overall use non-aeronautical. And so therefore, it's a request basically we have to request a change in the land use from aeronautical to non-aeronautical. And so in order to do that, they can't make the determination whether that request is under their jurisdiction without a Section 163 review. And that review requires that the airport, the sponsor, not the FAA, requires the sponsor provide the FAA with an Exhibit A property map that conforms with a certain SOP. It's known as Standard Operating Procedure for FAA Review of Exhibit A. And I won't say the whole long, I won't give you the whole description, but in essence, the airport does not have an Exhibit A that conforms with this SOP. Our last master plan that was done in 2019, for reasons that I don't know, the Exhibit A was not done according to the SOP. So we have a property map, but it is not clearly defining what areas have been disposed of, as far as not disposed of that we got rid of it, but are no longer under the FAA's authority. So in order to make that determination, we have to do what's known as an Exhibit A review. It's a very in-depth land review. It is funded. It can be funded. The FAA will pay for it up to 90%. We have put this in a request for an upcoming grant, with an upcoming grant application. However, that work will not be completed for about a year from the time we get the funding set up till the time the work is complete. At that point, then the FAA has to do their due diligence to then give us a determination. So it's multi-layer process, and we can't just give the response right now that we would like to. So there's a couple questions. We haven't brought this in front of you yet because it really we weren't at that point. Now, we can pay for the work to be done just on that property, basically the equivalent of an Exhibit A, not for the whole airport, but for just that property. And I got a quote for that. It'd be a little under $10,000. So that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get the answer that we or mosquito control would want. So the question comes back to, right now we don't have another need for that land, not today. Will we in 10 years? Will we in 20 years? I don't know. But that's the question the FAA has. They're always looking out for, are you using this land for its highest and best use? You'll hear that term a lot when you review documents that have to do with land use requirements as it pertains to the FAA, to the feds. So the burden is on us, on the city really, to make that determination, and then once we're sure that, yes, we want to use it for that purpose, we want to lease that land to an entity like mosquito control, then we have to provide them with this information. So while I'm not, again, just wanted to give you a little background on what was going on and where we're at with that. I don't know how quickly they're ready to, get funding. I think I talked with our project development director, I think a couple weeks ago, something about they're still looking for funding. But that's where we're at with that. And so there's a little background as to their presentation. I don't know if you have any questions on that. And then I'll get right into, I'll be very brief on my presentation that I have.
Anyone have comments back?
Yeah, I think we have to be very careful in recommending the lease of land for non-aviation purposes. And this is something that requires, in my mind, a good deal of scrutiny and study as to what we might do with that land 10 years from now. I think that's something that we really do need to consider.
Why wouldn't we get the Exhibit A updated now and go ahead and get that process started? And knowing that it's going to take some time, you mentioned already a year, and then it's going to, I can imagine that being probably a couple of years for that whole process to play itself out. But if the FAA is willing to pay 90% of that, and we have to have that, it's going to come up every time somebody wants to do something with the airport, is the fact that we don't have an updated Exhibit A that we can stand behind, all right?
It's caused us several problems. And so we've been, as soon as we found out this is something we didn't have, we've been working on discussing it with the FAA, seeing how soon we could get it wrapped up in a project. It's not something that they would fund necessarily on its own, but you can wrap it up in another project. So in other words, when we go out for a grant to design the taxiway or to construct, it'll actually be the construction phase for Taxiway Bravo.
Yeah.
We're there, I think, preparing that. We should be able to, looking at, I forget what the timeline on that was.
Have the grant in hand by the end of summer, but we wouldn't begin until the fall.
And that's the challenge, why we can't immediately go out and do it. So we
there's
can
a lot
do
of
the
people here that have a lot more experience with this than me. I've only been a few years at it now, but I have already seen several instances where the lack of a good Exhibit A has caused us grief.
Well,
Okay.
even the requests for, we're getting people, interested parties now for land. But because I don't have some of this documentation ready, it's harder to get that process rolling.
Okay.
So I can't say as to why it wasn't done already, but I can tell you we've been working hard on getting it wrapped up now. The only reason why we wouldn't just we can do the standalone work for just one property, but it's piecemealed. And so spending $10,000 on something when we don't know for sure the outcome is, a little hesitant, but I think
that you guys need to go get the Exhibit A. You need to have a plan to get it into the next FAA-funded project and get that going.
yes, it is.
Okay.
Yep, it's already planned. It's in our CIP list. It's already in our application.
Oh, it's so for the Taxiway B? Is that what we?
Yeah, it's already wrapped up in our application.
Okay, all right. Okay, that has to happen. We've got that's a fundamental business that we need to have in our back pocket and have it done, so it's there. So, but we appreciate the additional comments on the possibility to do a partial, but I think my recommendation is that you guys get the whole thing done as soon as you can. Okay. Airport.
All right, so we have limited time, so I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. Just the airport, this is just our official kind of update for the quarter. Just a reminder is our vision statement. We are the aeronautical gateway to our community. And so our focus has been and continues to be to provide the users with safe first-class aviation facilities. Everything that we're doing and trying to get buildings rehabilitated, taxiways rehabilitated, et cetera, has been to live up to this and to continue to make sure that we have a good first impression for those who are visiting the area for the first time. I think, we have business owners, we have families on vacation, the governor, flight students, no matter who's coming in, the airport's an important part of the community, and it provides a way for all the people to arrive or depart our community. So just wanted to highlight our vision there as we start off this meeting. Just a couple quick updates on our capital improvement projects. Our backup AWAS has been installed. That's the automated weather observation system for the tower. That is not a full-fledged AWAS, so it provides only some data, but the intent of that is to have a redundancy built into the system so that when we have a lightning strike or some other type of failure, that the controllers have information such as wind speed, temperature, dew point, et cetera, for that backup information for our users. Taxiway Alpha project is coming along really good. It's under budget and ahead of schedule at this point anyway. They've laid about 500 rolls of sod between yesterday and today. So it's in the second phase right now of that project. You see a lot of equipment out there. You notice also probably some dust. We're doing our best to stay on top of the dust. Just one day alone, they put about 30,000 gallons of water down. I mean, they're really trying to stay on top of the dust as best they can. Fuel farm improvement, that's a project that only had one bid a while back. We are very close to having this go back out for rebid. We have redesigned it because some of the civil work that was included in the fuel farm project was what we feel based on a lot of discussions with our consultants and with those who didn't bid, was the fact that our original bid included a lot of civil work that we feel scared folks away. So we're really focused on just getting that tank in with the minor upgrades. We will have 3 tanks. The nice thing about that is that at some point, eventually, when and if we have alternative fuel of some type and we have the need at our airport to have 3 different kinds of fuel, we'll have that ability, or we'll have additional capacity for either jet fuel or avgas. In the short term, it'll mean additional capacity for avgas. Admin building design is coming along. We're at the 50% mark. Things are underway now for that, going well. ATC, air traffic control rehab, is complete. The Taxiway Bravo project is in its design. As Tammy mentioned, we'll be going out for bid in the summer. This time next year, that's the taxiway you'll see being worked on instead of Taxiway Alpha like you see right now. As you may know, that taxiway project also includes work on the runway ends for 725 to take some of the asphalt off that's there now. It's about 130 feet total, and that addresses the issues that we've had with our loss of night approaches into runway 725. Runway 725, again, another PAPI and Vault as soon as I think we go out for bid, I think we're coming up to the point where we're going to be in design for that shortly. Yeah, we're at the 30%, okay. So T-Hangar F, that rehab, they're putting a finishing coat on that T-Hangar today on the roof. The sod has been laid, and we have our final inspection tomorrow. So we have had some good progress in the last few weeks. Things are moving, things are shaking. We also had the introduction of a secondary wind cone for anybody flying in on runway 7. I don't know if you saw it because it's such a tiny little wind cone, but it is kind of cool. We've got a secondary wind cone out there closer to the approach end of 7. So you can see it a little easier as you're on final instead of looking to the primary wind cone in the center of the field. Again, I mentioned that briefly, that there's just a kind of a mock-up of the elevation for the front of the admin building. There is a quick snapshot of a few weeks ago. We found what we believe to be part of the World War II catapult system. We located on a map. It was in the same location. It appears to be remnants from that era. There's a quick picture there of our T-Hangar F being worked on, and the tower. Nice little picture there. We've got some, again, we talked about our Exhibit A, the nonprofit lease. We've already talked about that. We do have had more interest, a significant uptick in interest for land, so we're working closely with our development services on those. We also conducted a recent hangar inspection. which found most everyone in compliance. There was a few that are not, and we've already sent a notice out to everybody saying, hey, giving you a little heads up. We're not just giving you a little grace period. Take a couple months, make sure that you're in order before we start handing out notices. I said I'd be quick. Questions, comments?
Any comments, questions, discussion?
No, you got a big X on there, so I'm assuming that means don't say anything.
Okay. Good update. Appreciate that. There's a lot going on out there right now, so it's all good. Did you want to talk a little bit about the hangar survey?
Absolutely. You know what? I have that here somewhere. Give me a second. So this survey was focused on T-hangers. We haven't really done surveys. This was kind of our first attempt at doing surveys of this kind. We have roughly 72 T-hanger tenants, 100% occupancy. We hardly go, as soon as somebody moves out, we get somebody else moving in. Hangar waiting list has shrunk because we've got a mandatory fee. We're at about 40, 50 people on our hangar waiting list. And so we decided, you know what, let's get a feel for how our T-hanger customers are doing and how just kind of overall. So this is our first attempt. We do need to do a survey for the whole airport users as a whole, but I did kind of break it up because I wanted to hear a little bit of how our T-hangers are feeling, because they're the ones that communicate a lot with us in terms of, hey, we got issues, I've got a light out, I've got this, I got that. So I kind of wanted to hear overall how they are. So we just started off with how often do you fly? We see the majority of them fly. At least this is self-reporting. We have 30 responses, so not as much as I would like, but I still felt that's a decent amount. Most of them fly once or more a week. Their experience with air traffic control overall high, and as you know, air traffic control does their own survey. This is just more for our internal purposes. And got a little bit, some answers about how people feel about our airport compared to other GA airports. How do you rate the condition of the runways? In the feedback later, we know that runway 220 is definitely on the list of our worst runway. And we're aware of that, and that's something that we're going to have to discuss more in the future. Same with taxiways. Most people gave it a 4 and 5, but mostly 4. Airfield signage, most felt it was pretty decent. Lighting, condition of the hangar, definitely spread out. You have some people who are fine with it. As we know, we have just finished one rehab, but we've got another T-hanger E, which got rehabbed a couple years ago. But based on what we know now, that was not, it could have been done better. There's still some items that are going to have to be addressed. Overall, people are very satisfied with the communication. How can we improve our communication? Some of the comments. So, as you can see here, the door cane bolts, hangar doors, that's something that we've had an issue with in some of the hangars, is the hangar doors have held up. Jacob has worked hard on that. We've worked hard on one of our contractors to try to address that. But I don't know that I don't think we're still 100%. We're just curious. We since found out that a mobile app is something that, because we're a public entity, it would be very difficult for us to manage. However, our goal, and I just want to throw this out there for the public, is we'd love the ability for our tenants users to communicate more internally. So, we've had some of our users express interest in, hey, I'd like to get to know my other, the other tenants, but I don't know how to contact them. There's no virtual bulletin board or some way that they could interact. So trying to find a way to make that happen. Other suggestions or comments? Runway condition, hangar corrosion, comments about one of the controllers, the hangar doors are not the best. So we're going to take this information and just, one by one, runway condition. This is something that we've got to address as far as runway 220. That's probably our next big kind of how are we going to tackle this, because it's very expensive. It's not a funded runway as far as the FAA is concerned, because it's not primary, it's not secondary. It's a third runway that we use, as the airport and air traffic control love, but we have a hard time justifying that to them. But I think it's worth another look, and we'll have, I think, an opportunity to come up with a way to get their attention on that again and see what we need to do to possibly get some funding for that in the future, because we're going to need help with that. It's going to be very expensive. The rust, so we still have one of the hangars, Hangar E, like I said. We've had a contractor give us a quote on that to repair some of that, but that is a significant cost that's not funded. The issue is that there was a grant to repair that hangar several years ago, so it's not eligible for another grant right now. It's already been rehabbed, and the rehab wasn't as thorough as it should have been.
Yep.
Just kind of let you read through, and this is part of the agenda packet, so anybody who's has a moment can read through that. So I won't take up any more time on that.
Well, I think it's good that you reached out to the tenants, and I think that you got some good feedback there, so I think it could be valuable to us as going forward.
That's all I have.
Any other business?
No.
Airport Advisory Board member comments? Start with Celeste.
I think that we are on the right path, and I think that we're going to accomplish a lot more, especially in 2025, I hope. And I think getting some more fuel, that's going to be great, especially if we can get another container for the fuel. We'll sell more, make more money.
Okay, thank you. Gary?
I've got nothing at the end. I've said what I wanted.
Okay.
Nothing to add, thank you.
And I don't have anything further to add either. It was a good presentation, very comprehensive today. We've got a lot on our plates, a lot going on right now, so continue the effort. When's our next meeting?
July 25th.
July 25th. Okay.
You may want to count me out. I think I'll be in Oshkosh that weekend, or that week.
I won't be here either.
So.
Okay. Are we ready to adjourn?
Do we have
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to adjourn.